Okay, it's 1 o'clock and Maxine will not be joining us. So let's call the meeting to order. Okay, roll call, please.
Lee.
Here.
Lear. Here. Topper's excused. Yang.
Here. Okay. Any changes or comments on the minutes from last meeting?
No.
No. Okay, we'll consider them approved. Any residence forum?
Let's see here. No.
No residence forum? Okay, so with that, I guess we can move to Eric.
Okay. Hi, everybody.
Hi.
It's been a while since we met. It's like August. Can you believe it? Actually, that was the last meeting that we had together. So first one of this year, starting off some of the same things that we've done before, some new things. For show and tell, I brought with me my colleague. You've probably met, this is Arnold Sevillano. He's currently our HR journalist too. He's been here about 2.5 years.
Yeah, almost 3 years in July.
Now. He is a person that I rely on heavily. And you probably met him at the holiday parties and other events that we've had here. But I wanted to introduce him to the team because he'll be taking over when I leave on May 1st as our interim senior human resources manager. So between now and then, it's going to be a lot of studying, cramming, training, a lot of those things to be able to bring up to speed and to pass a lot of these things on to him. So he's here to kind of observe what we're going through today. So I just wanted to start on that. Okay, so heading into our agenda. The first thing I want to talk about is just some of the staff numbers and statistics, things that I normally report out on. And I want to reserve some of them because some of the data is what I'm going to include a little later on in the presentation when I talk about the data that we've collected over the last year. So, okay. So just a few bits of information for current activities. As of today, we have a headcount of 255 employees. Of those are 120 full-time employees, 6 part-time employees, and 80 full-time union employees. We also have in that mix 47 part-time on-call and seasonal employees. Year to date, we're just starting out, so we only have 5 hires year to date, and then we've had 2 transitions year to date. And just in comparison, I'll talk a little bit about this later on too. As we ended 2024, we had 28 hires altogether, and then 26 transitions last year. Those are also in your reports. I also want to note, because when I talk about numbers and metrics, I generally will leave out part-time on-call and seasonal employees because it really is not a true reflection of items like turnover. But for the purposes of just reflecting what we do in human resources and the activities, although we had 28 hires in 2024, we actually had 55 when you consider part-time and call employees. And it's significant, at least in sharing that, because whether it's a full-time regular employee or whether it's a part-time and call, you're still going through the same employment practices. You're going through the recruiting process to post for positions, to advertise, to interview candidates, and then all of our new hire processes like background checks, making sure that they're drug tested, all those things are the same. So it's even. So you think, well, it's only 28 hires. No, really, in that regards, it's important to take a look at what human resources is doing with the number of individuals that come through. And in the same way, when you're talking about exiting employees, although we don't include that in turnover statistics, you're still going through the same process for terminations. And last year we had, again, 26 regular employees, but 54 transitions. So that's just, it creates a lot of work for the Human Resources Department. And then average tenure as of this month is 9.8 years. And then lastly, for current job openings, we have total of 9 that are posted, 11 job openings altogether, 2 will be posted. We're looking currently for an administrative associate in MOD as a new position, mechanical electrical technician, a carpenter, 2 custodians, AV techs, which we're on the verge of hiring. We still have an opening for a bus driver, a fitness trainer, a gateway receptionist as a replacement. We're looking for part-time on-call events assistants, and then we have a new position that's approved this year for a golf course assistant superintendent. We've also had a couple of one person who is, well, actually, they had left last year, so there's a couple positions within our accounting group that need to be filled. We're still looking for a senior accountant and a financial analyst. Any questions about that part?
If we
But I do have a question. When you said that, 20-something regular hires but then 55, does the 55 include the 20-something?
It does,
Okay,
it does, it's
alright.
inclusive.
So it's
Yes,
total,
yeah,
the total is 55?
Yes.
Okay, all right, okay.
Want to continue?
For that section, I'm done.
Well, if Stanford's done, there's no unfinished business, so we go to new business.
Okay.
And we come to you again.
All right, all people, okay, all right. So the next section is at the first meeting of the month, we always talk about the calendar for the upcoming month. I've included that in your packets. My proposal for the remaining meeting schedule this year and the different items that we covered. There's nothing new or unusual in terms of what we look for. At some point, we'll talk about the new CPIU that's released, and we'll talk about wages and compensation for the following year and how that affects our base wage increases, merit market pools. Later on this summer, once I get information on renewals for insurance, we'll talk about that. And then the things that go along with it, the union employee benefits, increases, GM compensation, et cetera, through approvals. But at this time, I also want to just open it up to the committee to say is, what else would you like to see covered within this year? Whether it's myself or Arnold, anything that's related to employee compensation and benefits, there's the topics, this is where we discuss those things.
I'm just curious, how does the union contract fall in here? Is that something we talk about, or? Because I understand the contract expires this year, so.
It does.
We can go into discussions with the union. Do we talk about that at all? Is that something handled differently?
It's a good question. I mean, it has really kind of dynamics and life of its own because there's other things that are associated with the contract in terms of employment. It's not just about benefits and compensation. It's part of that. I think generally when we talk about benefits and compensation with this committee, and as it relates to union employees, we're usually talking about benefit programs that will affect everybody.
Mhm.
So it's possible that there could be some issues that come about. I'm not sure what all of the items are that will be discussed at this year's negotiation. I think if there is anything that's relevant, we would bring it back to this committee to bring up as they come up.
And I'm just curious, when does the contract expire?
July 31st,
And it was just one union?
one union, yeah, local
Okay.
324, it's labor
Okay,
district.
which is good, because I've been in places where like 3 unions.
Oh, yeah, that's.
So
that's-
one union, a little easier.
Yes.
Okay, and when do you start discussions with the union, or is that
I
started
think
already?
the exploring of issues, I think we have a very good relationship with the union. So we're aware of things that have come up, either contract language that might be a little bit vague, things that have to be clarified. We'll discuss things like their wages and their wage schedule. That's probably something that would always be part of a negotiation. We'll start looking at those things over the next few months to find out what some of those things are. I think the collective bargaining process officially will begin sometime in, I would say probably by mid-May, mid-late May.
So again, if issues come up that we need to know about, you'll bring it to the table.
Yes,
Okay.
that are relevant to this committee, yeah.
Okay, good to know.
I have a question. I think since we have a new president, since are dramatically changing, at least on the market, they are worried about the inflation being caused by his tariff and all this. How can we get a little bit early notice about what symptom to look at? Because an annual increase based on certain things. So this year eventually going to be very fractured. So
Well, as part of what we've done since 2017, that this committee is, we've traditionally approved base wage increases on the CPIU, which is given during the month of April. That's kind of the reporting measure that we have. It's a system that I think has been fair and consistent, taking a look at cost of living expenses over the years, and it's a pretty reasonable measure. You're right that there's a lot of things that are happening right now, and who knows what that's going to do. Even today's report about that, it's a little surprise, an uptick in inflation. So we don't know. But this measure comes out every other month, it's reported every other month. And when you take a look at the history, sometimes high months, sometimes there's low months. We just don't know. For our purposes, though, we looked at the month of May because it lands at a part where it's not affected by seasonal ups and downs. It seems reasonable for us. We won't know until it's released. And kind of talking about the calendar here, there are some places where we may move them. So like, for example, I put in the month of May, the discussion of compensation, but the release of that date is not going to be until May 13th, which is the day before. So I'm not sure we'll have enough time to gather information and be prepared to talk with it the day after the 14th. We may have to move that discussion until June. But a lot can happen with US economy and things between now and then. We'll just have to see when those numbers are released. And then as a committee, we'll talk about it. Is it reasonable to apply the same standards using the CPIU? Or do we want to use some other type of metric to do that, like the ECI, Employee Compensation Index, other type of measures to do that? But we'll do that here as a committee.
Thank you.
Okay, good.
Move on.
Move on. Okay, so now we're getting into the area of annual reporting. I'm gonna see if I can display my screen. Functions. Hey, Troy, do you know how to share this? Oh, wait, I think I got it.
Yep, there you go.
Here you go. All right. Okay. Okay. So starting.
We got
That's not what I want. There we go. Okay. This is just representing the packet here. So on the first report, what I like to do is to talk a little bit about what has happened with our compensation since we had the approvals last year from the committee and the board. So if you take a look at the top box in compensation distribution, for our base wage allocation, what we show there, if you take a look at the 880, sorry, just 880,724. That is the increase that we've had in base wages overall over 2024. So that is the base wage increase that we've seen in 2025 that's been approved. The next level down is just the activity of our merit market pool. So you'll see the 110,000, that was the amount that was approved by the board for non-union employees, trust employees. The $82,035 there is the amount allocated for MOD employees. So the total of that is $192,035. Of that total pool, between merit lump sums and merit increases that we've awarded, we've distributed $138,865 of that. So what that amounts to is for the trust amount, it's about 77% utilization of that 110,000 that you provided. So we have an additional, what's my math? 23% that we can use between now and the end of the year for other merit recognition or other wage adjustments based on changes in wage bands. So if you find that a position has fallen below or it's out of sync with the market, we have those monies to be able to use to help right-sized employees, if you will. Okay. On the MOD side, we've used about 71% of that. Going down to the blue box, under the base pool, 137 employees were eligible for that base pool increase. So they received, which will be approved, which was the 3.8% that was based on the CPIU. Out of the merit market pool, 31 employees received a rate increase as an adjustment to the base outside of the 3.8%, 40 employees received a lump sum amount. And just to note that there are 4 employees that received a combination of both a lump sum as well as a rate increase to their wages. And then on catch-up, we only had 3 employees. You also see that in the box below, in the orange box, those 3 employees. And this actually is really good. I want to remind the committee again is that within our compensation program, we've established a floor and a cap to wages, which means that when we're looking at increasing employees' wages into the following year, that we want to meet at least that floor, but we don't want to exceed that cap. We've been several years running now where, again, we've been really good about making sure that wages are not paid over the cap. So you'll see a 0 though there. And a lot of work has been done to make sure that our wage bands are in line with the market. And so we only had 3 employees after their adjustments who were below what that floor was. The amount of monies that it took to catch those up, all 3 of them all together, was just $657. So really that's kind of a good sign that part's working. So a lot of data on this here. Any questions about the compensation and distribution of compensation? Okay, all right. So let's go to the next page, and I'm going to talk a little bit about performance evaluations. This covers the bulk of the report and several of them. And I wanted to highlight it this year because we went through a pretty big change from last year. Up until last year, we've used kind of an Excel form. Some people were printed out right into it. It was very 20th, 19th century kind of way of doing things. So we made a lot of improvements. We made it online, so we are able to keep records of this. We also modified the format of the review itself to make it much more richer. And you'll see in the document itself, I've listed the different scoring that we use 1 through 5. So that process of being able to rate individuals and their performance criteria kind of stays the same. But what we've done is significantly expand the categories for review. And you'll see in here 7 different competencies that we've added, which is important. So if I break this down and explain it this way, in the past, we would take a look at a person's job description, which is the basics for what they do here. And whatever it is, we would put it into the old form and then rate them 1 through 5 based on how they did. I think that is a very narrow way of looking at a person's performance. And here's the reason why is that, yes, you hire somebody that can come to GRF, that can perform those essential job functions, but we all know that a good employee or a great employee is much more than the sum of their job qualifications. Just because they can do their job, execute on their job well, doesn't mean they're good. You need to take a look at other competencies or qualifiers, their attendance, their communication, their ability to interact and work well with others. So when you look through this new evaluation form here, we have 7 additional competencies that help surround out an employee's evaluation. If anything, it creates a better conversation about their performance. To talk with employees more steadily, more fully about their experiences here, how they're doing, how they're engaging in their work, not simply, can you use Excel? Can you produce reports? Can you do these things? Which again is a very narrow focus. So really, I think we've taken our process for evaluating performance really up a couple of levels by having this new tool to engage them in better conversations between managers and employees about how they're performing. The results of that you'll see further down in their scoring. If you take a look at this graph here, you'll see that this is ideal. A person who's performing well is going to score between a 3 and a 4, and the bulk of our scores really fall and center within that area, better than it has ever been before. And then you'll find some that may need to catch up a little on that left side, and then others really that far exceed that too. So the results of, I think, implementing this new system has resulted in much richer conversations about performance, and I think it's kind of reflected in the scores that they have here.
How did the employees react to this new system? And how far in advance did you tell them about this new system?
Those are great questions, and sometimes it's hard to move the needle forward on things.
Really?
It's not about, but what I found was it's not about the content. I think as both managers and employees saw how they're being evaluated, the type of things that we're bringing up here, they're all reasonable.
Well, yeah.
The harder part was the adoption of technology. And I think in any kind of system or program, being able to adapt a new software program, it's like learning a new language. You have to get used to it. It's a disruption of how you've been doing things before. So that was just the hard part, getting used to it. And there's differences. You have some employees that take to it like a fish to water. Others, it's a little bit more slow moving on that. So really, that's probably the only difficulty I think I had in being able to implement the process. I think you'd find agreement that it's a better tool overall of how to measure employees.
And did they know quite a bit in advance that it was gonna be, that these criteria, not so much the physical, how they had to fill out the form, but the criteria?
They knew it was coming, and part of it is because I wanted to do this last year and I could, the year before, and I couldn't. So they knew that we were going to be generating the system at some point. So we finally were able to do it. So it was not a surprise.
Yeah.
But it just took some time for individuals. On top of the 7 competencies that are across the board for all employees, we also had 3 additional competencies for managing supervisors, which centered on their leadership capabilities. As managers, again, it's not just about you being able to tell your team what to do and direct the work and get the work done. It's how you do it, and it's how you lead your employees, how you engage with your employees, how you coach them, how you train them. And so that's an important part of our evaluation of our managing supervisors too. So I think that shines a light on areas that we haven't really focused on as much before, or we weren't able to do within the old system or old tool of doing things. So I think that's really helped a lot. Any questions about the performance reviews? And the scoring that we have here. So again, on this list here, I have this and all the individual scores. There are 125 employees that were eligible back in November to take the evaluation. And just to note is if an employee is hired July 1st and afterwards, then we delay their reviews until they've reached their 6 months. But we also build into the budget that's already allocated the increase that the board has approved. If they successfully pass, then they're eligible for that increase, but after they've met that 6-month requirement for us.
You know, it's interesting, as I hear what you said about how the new review kind of came up with these numbers. Because when I first saw it, I go, that looks very atypical, because from my HR experience, it's usually kind of like a bell curve, you know what I'm saying? Where this one's more flat.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I said, well, and then I looked at the last 2 years of the golden rate, the same chart is always bell shaped. So I'm saying, and I hear you saying that this may cause that to be a little different, which I think is good, because in the past, I think people just kind of, what I call it, a performance improvement creep. It just kind of creeps up every year. Maybe this will make the evaluators more objective, because now they have to look at these 7 different functions as well.
They do.
Yeah, so I'll be curious, you won't be here, I won't be here. So next year after, is it gonna end up being a bell-shaped curve? Or is it, are we gonna continue with this more objective with our employees?
Yeah, the system also is great because it allows us to tweak this. If we decide as a management team that we're missing a criteria, in fact, I thought of one, is that we should probably have as a standalone area safety, which we do a good job at, but that's also part of the picture of an employee, right? It's easy to add a new competency and just create a new form.
Yeah.
And as we go on, it may make sense, instead of having a general evaluation form across GRF, maybe we have a separate evaluation form for Jeroen's world or Ann's world or communications that's specific to their areas of things that had that.
Yeah.
So it allows us to grow and meet the needs of.
I'm just happy to see that, a change was made, instead of just going with the same thing year after year.
Yeah.
Because, so it's good, so I commend you guys for doing it.
Okay.
And I think it's impressive that you had so many people who fell within that 3 to 4. And also that you had quite a few who were above 4. I
Yes,
think that's great.
yes.
It shows well for our workforce.
And that's what we want. We want competent, capable employees that are engaged, that are doing the job they're hired for. Those that really kind of exceed that as well too. That's ideal for us.
Very good.
All right, so going to the next report. Turnover. This is going to be somewhat of a recap of things that we spoke about at the last month in executive session. But for the purposes of kind of an overall turnover report for the committee, we decreased our turnover again, which is good. In 2023, we had a turnover rate overall of 14.9%, and that decreased down to 12.6%. Again, that includes only full-time regular and part-time employees. It excludes our part-time and call employees. If you break that down between turnover between non-union and union employees, the turnover rate for non-union employees was 17.74%. That is, it looks higher than the overall general of 12.6%, but it's lower than the year previously, which was 20.16%. So we went from 20.16% down to 17.74% for non-union employees. For union employees, we went from 6.33% down to 4.76% for their turnover. So again, when you look at it, it's the right movement. It's good. The turnover for union employees is excellent. As I mentioned, just in terms of a turnover ideal, is employers will look at 10%. So if you have a 10% turnover, that's excellent. It's not ideal. I mean, it's ideal, I'm sorry, it's not realistic because depending on what kind of industry you're in, you're gonna have higher turnover in some, you're gonna have lower in some others. What you usually look at within American businesses is a turnover anywhere between like 12% up to 20%. So for ours overall at 12%, 6%, it's really excellent. And this conversation about jobs in the marketplace have changed a lot in the time that I've spoken with you and since COVID. There is that whole period of time where it's like, oh my gosh, as an employer, we are struggling to get talent because there's so many individuals, out there that are talented that other companies are looking for. Now, today, it's changed. You're seeing, and we're finding too in recruiting, it is harder again to find good talent because there's in certain positions. But there's others where we're kind of the head of the game, where there are a lot of individuals because of job losses, restructuring and changes, is that there's other areas where we're getting a lot of resumes when we're out there recruiting. So, you talk about things that are going on in our time like inflation and new policies and things like that. It's all affecting the employment world as well too. And I don't have a crystal ball to tell you what's going on, but it can change from year to year. The next.
Can I ask a question? When we look at our workforce and how we have so many older people, not old, because we're not.
More mature.
More mature.
Yeah.
Then, as those people get older and they age, and then people like you who want to retire. I think that accounts for some of the non-union being higher because we have more people in the older age range.
We do. And actually, if you look at, I'll bring this up, that kind of speaks to it. Here we go. It's this report right here.
Turnover by age groups, yeah.
Yeah, but I wanted to point out something that was just interesting to me. If you look at the seniority demographics for a union, and you see the age group, years of service, 10 to 14 years, and then 15 to 19, they're both at 15%. So That's double when you, of what you take a look at in that box above, 12 to 14 and 15 to 19 for our non-union employees, which sit at 6 and 8%. The data that I give you in these reports, again, they're not conclusive, but they give you indications of what may be going on. When I look at this, it shows me that the reason why there's a double rate or double the number of employees or percentages of retention of employees and years of service for union employees probably has to do with the stability that they have with the pension. I think it goes back to the pension. And if you're a union employee and you get to that level of you're gonna wanna hold on to your job because you're that much closer to getting your full pension when you retire. That's why I think it's double of that when we see for non-union employees. Now, if you look at for non-union employees, it's pretty high, that 48% there for those that are less than 5 years of service. I think that has ticked up considerably because since COVID, we initially had a lot more turnover. A couple years ago, we had turnover like excess of 20%. So we had I won't say a mass exodus, but we had an inordinate number of employees who have left or retired from us. And so because of that, we've had to hire in. So a lot of these new employees here are adding to that statistic that's there. That's why there's such a high number of those that are less than 5%. The key though for this committee is that given the fact that about 46% of our population is within that range of like retirement years, and we know that they're going to be leaving, is what do we do in terms of our programs and benefits that are gonna retain that group, the 1 through 5 years and those in that middle group here? And that's our challenge. You know, outside of wage increases is what are we doing to be able to do that? That's a tricky thing. And I've spoken to that before. We've talked about benefits like potentially increasing our 401k contribution. We've talked about things of adding and we've done this actually, adding very low or no cost benefits such as our voluntary insurance for catastrophic care, hospitalization and things like that. But that's what I think what you'll have to do is to think about what we can do to add to our culture here that's gonna help retain employees. So these numbers here that you report on every year is that they really work in our favor, continuing to keep employees. Any questions about the age or seniority? A lot of it, I think, is just for your reading interest to kind of look at and compare numbers. But as I said, they're not conclusive of anything, but they point and suggest areas that maybe we want to take a look at as a committee. Okay. And then just maybe finishing up on a few items for these reports. Last year, we saw the dissolution of the pension, and there was questions around, well, what does that mean? A year ago, we had no idea what that would mean for our employees who had to lose that. Again, they were all brought into our 401k and they now all receive the same type of matching contributions that we do for those who were not eligible for the pension. But I noted that of the 28 employees that were part of that group qualifying for pension, that only 2 of them are no longer here. And of those 2, one had already given notice before that decision had been made, so we knew that she was going to be retiring. And the other person was not able to come back because of health-related reasons. So the good news, the happy news is by taking this action, it did not cause another exodus of employees to move off because we've kept everybody. That's part of that program, and it's now complete. Any questions about the reports, any of the data that I compiled here?
Looks good. So Ted?
Just one question. It seems like no matter what on the years of service and the turnover seems to be a lot in the 1 to 5. If we get past 10, they stay for could be forever, you know what I mean, if we get past that. So has there been any feedback that has helped you figure out what we can do to keep the number less?
There have been some things, like for example, we do now, kind of once an individual has passed their probationary period,
Which is what? Is it 90, like standard 90 days?
6 months.
6 months.
6 months. But we do a kind of an interview from Human Resources where a person on my team will meet with them. We have a series of questions that we go through to get the feedback. And it kind of gives us some insight of things that we can tweak to make better. I think as a result of that, we've improved on our new hire orientation processes. We have a great GM orientation now. We take around in the bus. And it's hard when you have a need like ours and you hire, there's a tendency is to put them to work right away. And they miss out on really why they're here. And it speaks to itself just by taking a bus ride around the valley to see that you're part of a broader community of things that we do. It's helping employees to know where they fit in, not just an orientation to their job and their department. So it's things like this, creating awareness, creating better communication, opportunities for them to learn more about us, doing small things like we launched our new internal employee website that has all the information that they have there. It's little things like that that I think give employees a little bit more sense of what it means to work here, the benefits, and answers to their questions.
And just one follow-up on that, when they do the interview with them, as part of the interview, since they've been here for a little bit, a lot of times you get hired on doing something and you go, well, you know what, I would enjoy doing this so much better if there was an opportunity. Is that a question or is it posed to them? Or?
It's a good question. I think that'd probably be soon to have that. Our positions that we have, again, are pretty lean, so there's not as many opportunities. We post all of our jobs on the board for employees to see. Preferably, I'd like to see a person in their job for at least a year before they're eligible for transfer. It's different if we tap somebody to move into a job. But I'd like to see somebody in their role before they apply for something else that's posted. I would say though, and to your inquiry about that, that is the reason why we wanted to make our performance review more fuller, to help engage in better dialogue. So it's not just what they're currently doing, there are areas for promotion and growth, because a natural result of talking about how you're doing, how you're performing is what can you improve on? How can you grow? What are things that you can do? And that leads in other questions about potential career growth or progression, things that they'd like to do, whether it's projects or other jobs or things like that. So I think that's important because you want to have employees feel like there's a place for them, that they're not going to be stagnant, that there's a place for them to go.
Well, some people like stagnant. Some people like to, this is what I want to do, I'm really happy doing this. But I just was wondering if there was some, during that process, if there's, where do you see yourself? What would you like to, because after a little while, they do get a touch of everything that's around here. Maybe they would feel that they could be a better contribution and feel better about themselves contributing if they went from one role to another role. And that was the question.
Yeah, I think we could probably improve in that area. I think some managers are better at those types of questions than others. An area we can explore more.
One question, do employees do self-evaluation using this form?
They do. It's
They
the
do.
same exact form. So the
Okay.
process is that when it's launched in the system, the employee goes in and does their own self-rating in each of these things.
Okay.
Then it goes to the manager to do that. Then they sit down, then it's approved by the director.
Okay.
And then they talk about those things and then sign off. And it's a yes.
Yes.
Yeah, we want that feedback as well too.
Yeah, that's good.
All right, so then moving into the last part, I don't have this in your packet, but I will give this to you so you can add it, a couple of other slides. I tried there. Aqua. Oh, here, we can do that. Okay, so this last part is, I wanted to give kind of a report out on our utilization of our benefit plans. And the reason why I wanted to highlight it, at least for this committee, is that if you recall, last year we made a big switch in our health plans to differentiate them. We have two Kaiser plans. previously we had what we called a core plan and a buy-up plan. But if you compared their services and costs, they were too closely aligned with each other's. And so what we did was to help provide variety as well as savings, we differentiated that and introduced a high deductible plan, which was released last year, and now we're into the second year of that. I just wanted to show you that we've had a favorable migration, and I think we can continue to improve. But at the start of our pre-open enrollment, which we had each year, we had 21 enrollees in the high deductible plan, which is about a quarter of our total enrollees. And then post-open enrollment this year, that moved up to 32%. So we're about a third right now. So a third of our employees are in the high deductible plan. 2/3 of our employees have elected the HMO plan. And why that makes a difference is, let me show you another slide. Okay. This slide right here, it's so hard to see. Let me see if I can make it a little bit bigger. Okay. If you take a look at this box here, what I've broken down is to show you, we have 3 tiers of elections: employee only, employee +1, and employee +2. So in the green box, you see the difference in costs. So for example, if an employee moves from the HMO plan to the high deductible plan, we recognize or gain an additional $8,861 per year per employee who chooses to migrate from that plan. $19,000 for those who employee +1, and then a savings of $26,142 for each employee who selects the plan, the high deductible plan over the HMO plan. So that's significant in savings. Now, of that amount, if we divide that for the high deductible plan, we continue to pay, GRF continues to pay 90%. We allow employees to pay 10%, so there's a cost share in that. But I just wanted to put this out there as to show that, you know, our due diligence in providing meaningful benefits, because it's a great opportunity for employees to enroll in a high deductible plan, save on their own cost per month if that's important to them, as well as to contribute to a health savings account, which kind of reduces taxable income. So there's a lot of benefits to that. At the same time, a prudent move for our organization to show that we're trying to do things and offer benefits, but also to save as well too. Things that make sense, balancing dollars and cents. I think by introducing these programs, we'll be able to do that. And the success story here is that you've seen a steady migration of employees from the old plan over to new and the savings that we have. I see in particular for new employees coming in, and those that are younger as well too, who are relatively healthy, it's like, this is great. I get to save and also I get full coverage. Yes, I might have a higher deductible, but there are some benefits to that. So I think there's it's something good, I think, that we've added. Any questions about that, the utilization of our healthcare plans or any of our plans?
Can I just see what's on the left side?
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
That just talks about the different plans and the numbers that we've had in terms of the enrollments there. It shows you 2024 to 2025, the increases and decreases in those who have selected the different plans.
That's good.
All right. So that's it for, I think, my topics that I wanted to bring up today.
Okay. Anybody have any questions or comments? None? Okay, very good. I appreciate that. Good update. If we have nothing else, our next meeting will be on Wednesday, March 12th, 1 p.m. here in the boardroom and over Zoom. And there's no more questions or comments. Let's go ahead and adjourn the meeting. 1:45. Very good. Okay, thank you.
Very good. Thanks, everyone.